Shots fired at sea, an American dead, Washington and Havana on the edge. What exactly happened off the northern coast of Cuba? Because the story is coming out of this naval confrontation is raising the serious questions and serious tensions. Welcome to TimesXP. Here's what we know so far. A registered Florida boat, it approached Cuban water. Moments later, gunfire, Cuban forces opened fire, a confrontation followed, and now, according to the US officials, at least one American citizen is dead and others are injured. But Havana tells a very different story. Cuban authorities, they say that the vessel was not innocent. They claim that it was part of a planned armed infiltration. According to their version, the passengers were carrying rifles, handguns, even Molotov cocktails. They say Cuban patrols intercepted the boat near the island's northern coastline. They say that the passengers opened fire first. They say their forces responded. Washington is not accepting that version at face value, by the way. US officials say that at least one of those on boats, he was an American national. That directly contradicts the Cuban claim, right? That everybody on the boat was Cuban, living abroad. Now the key question becomes, who were the people on that boat? And what were they really planning here? This is where the situation, it becomes explosive. If a US citizen were deliberately targeted, the diplomatic consequences, it can be severe. Remember, we are talking about the US here. The US Secretary of State, Mr. Marco Rubio, has said that Washington will independently verify the fact. And if American nationals, they were harmed unlawfully, the US will respond appropriately. And that phrase, respond appropriately, it carries weight. In the meantime, Cuban authorities, they are defending their actions. Of course they will. They argue that they were protecting the national sovereignty. They say armed individuals cannot be allowed to approach their shores without consequences. In fact, if we see from their perspective, it was a security operation. But from Washington's perspective, it may be something far more serious. Well, this incident now sits at the crossroad of two long, complicated nations. US-Cuba relations have always been fragile, right? Decades of distrust, political standoff, sanctions and diplomatic resets. And now gunfire at the sea. While both the countries have launched investigation, the truth will actually depend on who fired first. Well, what weapons were actually on board? Were the passengers attempting a hostile act or something else? And were US citizens knowingly involved in a dangerous operation? Well, until those answers are cleared, tensions will remain high.